What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And today I am previewing the PFL 2025 PFL World Tournament 2 first round as we look at the women's flyweight division and the men's bantamweight division. If you listened to the show last week, you will know that there's been a fair few changes. We actually did a show a couple of weeks ago kind of priming ourselves for the year, so there's been a fair few changes, and we will go through all of the fights. Do you know what, we might as well forget about the old fights, they're gone. We'll just look ahead to the new fights, and I've a lot of tape study done over the last couple of days, so that's good too, because we get a fresh look at a lot of these people, and we have a lot of fresh fights as well, so it's very, very interesting to see how things will go. If you haven't listened to my post show for the first round, please do, because I was just thinking here, just coming in here to record this, and I was thinking, has there been a better PFL season card? And do you know what, I'd find it hard to remember one. Now maybe I could go back and we could go through them all and I'd find them, but none stick out to me, and this is, okay, there was not every fight was amazing. Logan's Hurley fight wasn't great, but there was a lot of great finishes. Like the Mavlid and Kennedy fight was really, really good. So as I said, if you haven't seen that, please check it out. But one thing I must say from that coming into this week, that the changes have been very evident, I think, and I think the changes have been good. Is it a coincidence that we have one of the best cards PFL have ever put on in terms of how, maybe not necessarily on paper, they've had some great cards in the finals and all, but in practice, the fights were fantastic. People were going for it. There was loads of finishes. And the fact that we have the new format, it's, as I said in the other podcast, the M&M, one shot, one opportunity. Maybe it is. I suppose we'll see this week, and we'll see if this card kind of produces. Now we're talking about women's flyweights and men's bantamweights here, so we've kind of we have lighter weight classes, so it might be tougher to get the finishes like we did in the what was it last week, the welterweights and the featherweights. Am I gone mad? Yeah. So yeah, it might be a little bit different this week, but still, I wonder, will we have a better indication next week? What we do have a great indication of as well was the changes in production, and I really, really like them, to be honest. Even our friends over in America, we don't really have it here, but the ticker tape going along, but even we did have it here, the stats for the strikes landed going up constantly in the betting, that's kind of gone now, so that's great. And the new lower third that they have with the time and the ticker and all was really good. They didn't have really, maybe one microphone malfunction, throughout the whole event, which is going to happen. So I think last couple of years, especially the early events, it always got better, but the early events, there was issues. Not really this year, so I thought it was brilliant, to be honest. And I thought a lot of people, even online, and we know people online are myself included, no matter what promotion is, what we can be, there's a tendency to be negative, but I felt a lot of positivity coming out of last week's event, and that'll be brought into this week's event as well. And if you didn't check it out last week, it's a better viewing experience, I think, if you're thinking about watching this weekend. So I would suggest that you do, because this weekend is an interesting card, but because of all the kind of the new stories and the new fighters coming in. So let's talk about them. Let's get straight into them. Let's talk about the main event. And as some eagle-eyed people out there might be able to tell, this has been cut back in, because as soon as I came back in after recording my whole preview, the main event changed. So we were due to have Talia Santos versus Juliana Velasquez. Instead of that fight, Talia Santos is out. We have Juliana Velasquez against Ekaterina Shakalova. And our new main event is actually going to be Leandro Higo versus Josh Rettinghouse. More on that fight later on. I'd already that breakdown done, but here we go with a breakdown for Velasquez versus Shakalova. Obviously, it's a big change for Velasquez. She was due to fight someone who is a good clinch artist. Kind of a a good technical striker who fights in different sort of ways. As someone who's fought Valentina Shevchenko and Santos, who bides her time on the outside and maybe won't throw that many shots, to someone in Ekaterina who is quite the opposite. In fact, a kind of a short, stout, bruising brawler, I would say. She's 5'2", and Velasquez is 5'7", and she fights with an advantage of height. Usually when you're not as tall, it's a height disadvantage, but I feel like it's an advantage for Ekaterina Shakalova. Watching a couple of her fights, obviously I talked about her for her other fight, which is now not happening, and watching a bit there to kind of maybe compare her to Velasquez in a few minutes before we came back on here. I think it is, what Shakalova is made to fight is almost Velasquez. She is used to fighting taller people. She's used to fighting people who are good technical strikers, who she's going to have to try to walk through to get there. She did it against Aspen Ladd last time out, watching a bit of that fight. Now, she didn't come up in the right end of that fight, but all her other fights, apart from one fight early in her career back, 6-7 years ago, she has won, beating Diana Silva, who's a good all-round fighter as well, and winning a few more as well, fighting a lot in FEN with, that's a pretty good place to learn your trade as well. So, watching her, she's a tank, really, a real tank, and uses it so well. As I said, the height is an advantage. The big hooks that come inside, very, very powerful. Do you know what I love as well? She kind of creates car crashes on the inside with her combination hooking, and then she goes for takedowns off of that, which is very, very smart. A lot of the times these days, I feel like people are almost, right, I'm gonna strike here, and then when the striking's over, then I'm gonna wrestle, and then I'm gonna strike. And she puts it together very well. And the transition in from striking to wrestling is not a big deal for Shakalova at all. She's really, really good at it. And then when it gets to the ground, very, very good submission game. She's very strong when she gets your back. She's a few rear naked chokes in her career. She's a guillotine, a triangle, and an armbar as well. So, sorry, actually, she got triangle. She doesn't have the triangle. I take it back. But still, that's a fair variation of submissions for someone who's, only had 4 submissions in their career, only had 8 wins in their career. So, very, very interesting to see this fight. Like Velasquez at the other side of it, then I suppose this is a massive, massive fight for her, considering what her career has been over the last few years. Like when she won that title, when she fought, Alima Len McFarlane, Denise Keelholz, you probably get a podcast of me at the time thinking, like, she's going to be the next level of fighter. I really thought she had it all at that stage. The only issue for her, I suppose, was the age. She's 38 years of age now. And, she was, 2020? So she was still 33, 34, going on and around then. By the time she fought Liz Carmouche in 2022, again, probably 34, 35 at that stage. It's been a difficult run for her, obviously, since then. She had those 3 Liz Carmouche fights, lost all 3 of those. And the win against Lisa Modern was, I suppose, a great way for her to end last year, knowing she wasn't going to get through. Now, obviously, it's very different this year. It's the straight knockout, but it put her on a winning even keel. She's supposed to fight, obviously, Tyler Santos. That's not happening now. The Shakalova fight, look, is it a better fight, an easier fight, a more winnable fight than Tyler Santos? Absolutely. Is it an easy fight? I wouldn't say that, no. But she comes in here now with a great possibility of putting 2 wins in a row, getting into the playoffs, and maybe, if Carmouche is still there, meeting her in the finale again. Imagine what that would be to go, go 4-0 in your last 4 fights after going 0-3 against Liz Carmouche and beating Carmouche at the end of it. What a run that would be. That would be absolutely unbelievable. So it's a massive opportunity here for Velasquez. And just her in the matchup of her, like, against Shakalova, I think a southpaw will be a massive advantage for Velasquez, because someone like Shakalova who, barrels in, as I said, with those big hooks, she's going to find it tougher against the southpaw, because a lot of those injuries for that sort of fighter is against orthodox. You know, she has lovely hard left hands on the middle, has Velasquez. You know, she grappled a lot years ago. When I was talking earlier on about her, I made the case that like maybe she needs to bring back a little bit of grappling now in the Shakalova fight. Possibly not, that has changed, but she used to grapple an awful lot years ago, did Velasquez. You know, I watched one of her older fights and, you know, she was getting into the mount and taking the back, and her jiu-jitsu was very good, but she's definitely gotten more technical with age. But that's going to be a benefit in this fight. I think Velasquez has to jab up Shakalova, keep her on the outside, let Shakalova wear herself out, let her get tired. You know, Velasquez has had issues, obviously, with Carmouche, with the wrestling at times. You know, Shakalova is not a million miles away from Carmouche as, you know, from the clinch in, let's say that. As a striker on the outside, she's different, all right, no doubt about that. But, you know, Carmouche fights are a perfect preparation for Shakalova. Although I think the actual double legs or the single legs that Shakalova goes for, probably a little bit, at this stage of her career, maybe a little bit better than Carmouche's. But that aside, like, Velasquez knows what she has to do here. Don't let Shakalova get inside and hit her with those big hooks. Don't let her get inside with those big double legs or single legs. Don't let her get a clinch where she can either hold you there or trip you, and keep her at the end of that jab. Stay composed. You know, stay in a place where you are controlling the fight, and Shakalova's, you know, madness can't be effective, you know. And the big cage, get around it, get the wheels going and turn. And I think that's what Juliana Velasquez will do. Obviously the betting odds aren't out for this yet, but I would garner that Velasquez will be a maybe a minus 250 favorite or something like that. Whatever it is, anyway, I think Velasquez is the pick here. All right, and I'll hand it over to Pashani now to talk about Leandro Higo versus Josh Rettinghouse. The co-main event then is Leandro Higo against Josh Rettinghouse. Very, very interesting for Josh Rettinghouse. He's 35 years of age, 20-5. He's 15 finishes in those. And believe it or not, Josh Rettinghouse fought. I knew the name. He fought in World Series of Fighting in 2013 and 2014. He fought Alexi Villa and he fought Marlon Moraes as well, who was, you know, he was Marlon Moraes back then. He went 5 rounds with him. I watched a bit of that fight yesterday as well, and you know, he's an effective guy. Is Rettinghouse? How effective is he these days? It'll be interesting to see. You know, he has he hasn't fought a lot in the last few years. He fought once in 25, once in 24, once in 23, once in 22. Didn't fight in 21. Didn't fight in 2020. You know, he had lost over in M1 in 2019, and I think he might have retired, or I'm not sure what happened after that, but he wasn't around for, you know, 2.5, 3 years after that. So, you know, all his fights back have been against, you know, in proving grounds, Total Fight League, FAC 25, you know, ex-MMA, you know. This is a big step up. So we'll see, I suppose, how it goes for him. But watching a couple of his fights, he hasn't really changed a whole lot in his years. You know, he's a fast guy, and I remember, you know, watching back that World Series of Fighting fight where they remarked on that, you know, volume fighter, jab and good combos, not the best takedown defense in the world, but tricky everywhere, you know. And he's, the one thing I would say about Rettinghouse, he's confident in his skills, and that's something, you know, you very much need to be. Whereas Higo on the other side of it, then, you know, he's had a good career, but a mixed career. Like, at 36 years of age now, 23-6, you know, 16 finishes, 13 submissions in there, riding a good 2-fight win streak here. He beat my countryman James Gallagher, and you know, I watched back that whole fight yesterday, and it was a relatively even fight. But I think what Higo did really well, and this is signature a lot of his fights. He does, like, he'll do the right thing at the right time. I think Higo is very, very smart. You know, he'll go for the takedown at the right time. He'll throw the big punch at the right time. But he's like, he's a relatively safer defensive fighter, or is now anyway. Like watching back, watch that Ricky Bandejas fight again. Like he did so well against Ricky to beat him in that fight. You know, he's been in there with some really, really good fighters. The two lads I mentioned, Darian Caldwell, he beat him. Been in there with, you know, Aaron Pico and Darian Caldwell multiple times, obviously. But, you know, been around a long, long time at this stage, 2006. I know Rettinghouse has been around longer, but, you know, he's just a really, really competent fighter. Good counter fighter. You know, I was mentioning that Gallagher fight, especially that fight. I think he landed a lot of counters. And, you know, I was talking about the big moments. He spins wildly at times, and then you're like, oh, this guy's, and then you go for a takedown. You know, very smart, very, very smart. Technically good everywhere. Great double leg, great ground and pound, and will probably wrestle here, I would say. And I think that'll be enough for him, and I think he'll get the win because of that. So he's definitely the pick in that one. He's only minus 350, and I think, you know, Santos is minus 350. He's minus 350. I think Higo should be by far the bigger favorite in that one, but you never know. You never know in mixed martial arts. Then we have Francesco Nuzzi against Mando Gutierrez. Nuzzi obviously has been a massive standout in the European scene, 10-1, 28 years of age with 7 finishes as well. Got the win in last year's season and looked really good in doing it. Beat some very, very good guys even before he got to PFL, and he's only, as I said, only one loss in his career. That was in his second fight back in 2016, and you know, he's a very, very useful fighter, like southpaw, fast, accurate, moves his feet an awful lot, power, counter striker, very, very good at it. The takedown defense again is an issue, but I think it's getting better, and he goes for subs and he sweeps from the bottom, and he's very, very good at it. Throws a bit of capoeira as well at times, but you know, you're fighting Mando Gutierrez here, and going to the ground maybe might be an issue because Gutierrez, there's actually a good few good guillotines on this card, but he has one of them, and he's a southpaw as well, so that's interesting. He fought Raul Rosas in the Contender Series, I believe it was, but good on the feet, you know. Maybe a tad underrated here. 10-3, only 28 years of age. As I said, won his last 2 in a row. The only guys he's lost are Cameron Smotherman, Raul Rosas Jr., and Mo Miller, who's been around for a long time in LFA back in 2020. So, you know, 6 submission wins in his career. He hasn't hit the guillotine. Has he hit it yet? No, he hasn't. He's hit the rear naked choke loads of times, but he has a very, very good... No, he has hit the guillotine. Sorry, he has. Against Kevin Walker. There you go. So if I'm Nuzzi, I'm watching out for that, but I think if the fight stays on the feet, I think Nuzzi will be a big favourite here. Again, he's the minus 300 favourite, plus 250, and I think that's just about right. But again, you know, can Gutierrez wrestle him? Like, is his wrestling good enough to get the fight to the ground? If it is, he can cause Nuzzi problems, but if it isn't, Nuzzi's probably just going to pick him apart, I would say, on the feet, but I wouldn't say for 100%, so a very, very interesting one, that one. Then we have Kasumov against Justin Wetzell. Now, this is a fight, you know, that wasn't due to take place, and it's a new one, and I think the last two actually as well weren't due to take place. I think every fight has changed, but you know, Kasumov 15-1 with 11 finishes. His only loss was to Charles Enrique in 2019, basically in the middle of his career so far. And, you know, he beaten Josh Hill, Mattos, who we'll talk about later on. He's also on this card. Whereas Wetzell, you know, 10-2, fighting out of Elevation, which is obviously a very, very good team as well. 1 loss early in his career and 1 loss in 2022. He's won 3 in a row since that. Beat Askar before that as well. And, you know, a guy with knockout power, 4 knockouts in his 10 wins. Very in-your-face kind of guy, you know. Maybe not the best athlete in the world, but he finds ways to win. Again, very good guillotine, good BJJ, as well as that power. And I think he's going to need a finish here because Kasumov is just such a good wrestler, hard-nosed wrestler, that if you can go on his face all you want, you can, you know, you can have your good BJJ all you want, but unless it counts massively, unless you're knocking him down, unless you're knocking him out, unless you're choking him out, you better pray and hope, because this guy is such a beast. Again, hard-nosed wrestler, but long shots on the outside, just never stops wrestling over and over, brutal ground and pound, loves the elbows as well, like watching back I think it was that Mattos fight, actually, just pounding him with elbows, and like, that fight went to the decision as well, so we'll talk about Mattos, as I said, later, but he puts on ferocious beatings on people as well, and the thing about it is, he's very good at controlling on top. And then he'll take his time. You think, oh, maybe I'll be able to get up. And then, bang, big combinations of ground and pound. He cuts people apart. Just never lets you go. I've written in my notes here, wrestling multiplied by 10. That is what Kasumov is, and he's an absolute beast. He's only minus 335. That is a steal. Bet on that. Poor old Justin Wetzell. He's a good fighter. Like, he's not wrong with him, but yeah, Kasumov should probably be minus 12,000 here or something like that. It's or maybe minus 1,200. Maybe I'm going a bit far there, but yeah, he is the big favorite here. Then we have Liz Carmouche versus Ilara Joanna. Obviously, Liz still fighting. The first woman to ever step foot in the UFC's octagon. 41 years of age, just turned it there about 6 weeks ago or so. 30 fights into her career now. Half of those have been finishes for her, which is a pretty good record. And before her loss to Tyler Santos in August of last year, obviously in the playoffs last year, she was on, like, what kind of a streak was she on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fight winning streak. Beat Velasquez obviously multiple times, beat Kana, Watanabe, a couple of times as well, beat Diana Bennett, beat Lima and McFarlane. Like, she was looking so good for that whole time, and now she goes in, against Ilara Joanna, 12-9, 7 finishes in there, 30 years of age. Someone who, when she came over to Bellator, I thought, look, she beat Beck Rollins. I was like, okay, maybe we have something here, but hasn't hit the ground running, I suppose. After that, lost to Watanabe, lost to Porto, lost to Gina Bishop, and Tyler Santos in last year. But she did pick up that win over Shannon Young, and that was a good win, a hard-fought win there. And, she's a well-rounded fighter, I suppose, without being spectacular anywhere. And it's going to take a lot for her to win this fight. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think, Liz Carmouche, I didn't think she looked fantastic last year. Even her wins at Kana Watanabe fight, she was losing it heavily, and she got the armbar with 8 seconds left. So if you're, Ilara Joanna, Arya Stark, you're probably thinking, I should have got my Arya Stark Funko Pop out for this one. Anyway, is she over there? No, she's not. There's an old Targaryen or something out there. Anyway, but she there's my sword there, long claw. We have some of the Starks anyway. What was I saying? Yeah, Carmouche didn't look amazing, and you'd be hoping, if you're Arya, that Liz Carmouche is past it. That's what you're hoping for. Otherwise, I think Liz Carmouche wins this fight. I think she's bigger, stronger, and just a better all-around fighter. So got Liz Carmouche in that one. Let's just check the price here. Liz minus 750 plus 470. If you want to back the age, go right ahead. But I don't know what I'd be doing it, to be honest. I'm probably picking Liz there. Right, let's talk about Mattos versus Jake Hadley. This is probably the sneaky, maybe best fight on the card. Like, it's handy going back watching Mattos and Kasumov, and watching killing 2 birds with the one stone. And both guys show that they're well able to fight in that one. Obviously, when you fight Kasumov, there's going to be a lot of wrestling, and it's going to be a tough fight for you. But watching some of his other fights as well, he's a very, very good guy, very muscular, good takedown defense. Like, he even showed at times against Kasumov, but a power puncher, very good guillotine again, throws wild hooks, and a very, very active guard. And you can see that he's 5 submissions and 7 knockouts at 32 years of age. He really, he puts them together pretty well. And, he's been in there with Petr Yan back in ACB. He fought Magomedov and Kasumov. Okay, he's lost to all of those guys, granted, but God almighty, been in there with those lads. And just not being very active. Once last year, once in 23, didn't fight in 22, once in 21, once in 2020, didn't fight in 2019. I think that's the big issue. Whereas Hadley is, I suppose, being the opposite. He's been very, very active. Fought 3 times last year, twice in 23, twice in 22, and he was the Cage Warriors champion obviously before that. And he had a tough run in the UFC. Got a great win over Caelan Loughran, and then lost to Cameron Smotherman in a decision, not too long after that. And ended up I don't know, did he not resign or what way did it happen? But I've admired Jake Hadley from afar, obviously watching him through in Cage Warriors, and he can do it all. Like, Jake is a good wrestler, a good well-rounded fighter. As Caelan Loughran saw, just a tricky guy. If you're not massively on it everywhere, a little bit like Leon Edwards. Like, Leon Edwards might be the best fighter in the world anywhere, but if you have any weakness, he'll exploit it as well. And I feel like Jake Hadley is a little bit like that, a power puncher. And, at 28 years of age, I think now is the time for Jake Hadley to go to that next level. I think if he was to beat Mattos here, I think it'd be a very, very good win for him. And I think it'd be, maybe it'd be the push for him to kick on and actually win this tournament. And, I don't know what the story is of Patchy Mix, but maybe fight Patchy Mix after this. I think it'd be unbelievable. I really, really like Jake Hadley. I really do. And he's a funny kind of character as well, not your normal character, I suppose. And we need more characters like that in mixed martial arts. And this is an interesting fight. Let me just check the betting on this one. Obviously, very, very close, very much closer. -160 for Hadley. Matheus Mattos plus 124. That's exactly how I'd probably price it, to be honest. I think Hadley just about the favourite, but not by a wide margin at all. Two more fights to talk about in the flyweights, but we also have two reserve bouts. We have Vilson Indragoni, who is 11-4 against Marceli Alves, who's 12-4. Good few finishes between them. We've the couple of underdogs, I think, in this flyweight division could be seen in the last two fights. And let's talk about Kana Watanabe against Jena Bishop first. Like, again, Jena Bishop, another one I have a bit of a soft spot for. I think she's a very, very talented fighter. And like, she was unlucky last year. She came up against Tyler Santos and Dakota Ditcheva. It was a split decision in that fight against Tyler, and a lot of people thought she could have won it. She can wrestle. She's very, very good. Submissions, a good few armbar wins. Like, she's 4 submissions in her career. She never had a knockout yet, but she's not a terrible striker by any means. And going in against Kana Watanabe, who again is has more than half her wins have come inside the distance, which is very, very good. She was dominant Liz Carmouche really in that fight until she got finished, and she was on a 2-fight win streak before that as well. But she'd beaten Denise Kielholz a couple of years back as well. She's a win over Ilara, Joanne, and Alejandro Lara. Like, she's a good fighter. But I think looking at the odds for this one, Jena Bishop is just about the favorite, -166 plus 130 for Watanabe, and I think that's about right as well. Like, Jena Bishop, is 39 years of age, but again, a little bit like Velasquez, she doesn't seem like, she's that age. When you're only 9 fights into your career, she's very, very talented, very, very talented. And I feel like, again, she could be the dark horse in this if she can get over Watanabe, who's a tricky customer, been around for a good long time as well. She's 36 years of age herself, and she has 17 fights, but a lot of those 17 fights, like in Bellator and Risen and Deep, since her very first fight, all of her fights have been in those organizations plus PFL. So very, very good experience there, and that shows at times. But I think the pick is just about Bishop in that one. Just about Bishop. And in the last fight, Elora Dana against Diana Avsaragova. This is about as much of a Kasha Styles as you'll ever get. Elora Dana is your brawler, stands in the pocket, waits for you, and then unleashes hell. She's kind of this odd split stance. You don't know if she's a southpaw or orthodox, and she throws bombs in there, KO power. I think she's only, let me just check again. She's only 1 knockout in her career, and that was her last fight. But by God, she has KO power if you watch that fight, because she knocked her opponent silly. She's one of those fighters. What did the boys in the CME call it? Is it the Mark Coleman or the Shogun? But anyway, she looks tired but keeps going. And as well, like if you watch that last fight, you might think, oh, she's just a striker. But watching back a couple of her other fights, she's lovely trip takedowns and very good BJJs. And in fact, she has 4 submissions. She only has that one knockout, as I said, but very, very good submissions as well. Good arm bars, rear naked chokes, and things like that. So, but a brawler, but very technical when she gets to the ground. Don't get me wrong, she has her skills, but on the feet, brawler. Whereas Avsaragova, she came in and she, looks pretty in every way. Let's put it that way. She's a pretty striker, lovely jab, lovely right hand. Not the most powerful in the world, but her execution is very, very good. Like, if you're, I'm sure if her coach is watching her coach is very proud, because she's probably doing everything exactly as the coach tells her. The problem is she's very, very young in her career. Maybe not the top athlete that you want, or the most powerful person in the world, but very, very technical kickboxer. As I said, that jab, the countering. Do you know what she is? She's not the fastest, but her timing is very good. Really good at timing. She landed in one of her fights. Let me see which one it was I was watching. The Lara fight, I believe. She landed a beautiful counter jab and stunned her, which was really, not a thing we see an awful lot, and very, very good. So I'd be interested to see how this fight goes. The betting on it, let me just check here, is plus 120 for Diana, and Dana is minus 154. I'd probably have it around that as well, to be honest. I think that's just about right. I think Dana's pace and madness might tell, but if it doesn't, and if the fight kind of keeps standing and Avsaragova can keep control of it, she absolutely can win that fight. But going to be tough, no doubt about it. But that is it. That is the full card, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's one of those ones where I think, again, we could have a good few finishes, people fighting for that big opportunity, and let's see how it goes. But we will leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Sheehan from Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.